Along with individual experts, SurgeonMasters brings you life improvement strategies in 10 minutes. These proven principles and strategies are easy to learn and can be applied immediately, allowing you to practice your best. Here's your host, Jeff Smith.
Welcome back to the SurgeonMasters mini podcast. I have with me Dr. Errin Weisman, a family medicine doctor and CEO of the Physician Coaching Alliance. She's out there in rural southwestern Indiana and loves her roles as a farmer's wife, an athlete, and a mother of three. Welcome, Errin.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jeff.
I'm glad to be here. I'm a little nervous.
I know you are, because I'm taking the reins.
Yeah, but I'll be good. I'm going to try and let you do a little bit of interviewing or coaching, whatever is coming.
That's right. So to Jeff's audience, he is going to let me interview him today, and we're going to talk about his surgical sabbatical. So tell us, Jeff, a little bit about what's been going on lately.
Well, in mid-July, I took time off to have a lumbar disc surgery, mainly to get the herniated disc taken care of. And there was a few more complicated medical terms to that, but basically recovering from that surgery. And I'm trying to be a really good patient. So I'm taking 6 weeks off of call and 4 to 6 weeks off of operating in the operating room.
How's that going for you?
Since I'm halfway, it's getting a little bit better. The first few weeks were pretty tough, especially the first week of thinking how I wouldn't be operating for 6 weeks. I've never done that in my career.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have to say, you should be so super proud of yourself for actually taking care of yourself, because as doctors, we make the worst patients. We wait to the last minute. We put off surgery. We put off procedures. We don't go get our colonoscopies or our pap smears. So I just have to put that out there that I think you are exemplifying what we all need to be doing for ourselves.
Yeah, and the challenge is that I've done a little bit of a mix of the old Jeff mentality of sort of how I trained and grew up, and a lot of focus on work, which is great. But in the new mentality saying, yeah, can I do that while still putting a very strong emphasis on taking care of myself?
Yeah, it's like that Native American story about the dark wolf and the light wolf, like wrestling against each other. So talk a little bit about that. Talk about how old Jeff has been like popping up in your head.
A lot of interesting examples. So some of it was in just the prep for surgery because it was a more elective surgery, or I chose to make it elective. I could have pushed it up, but it would be semi-elective for most people. So I wanted to treat myself like most people. In the planning of that, I realized I was going to be off for 6 weeks. So I did essentially a month's worth of work in a 2-week period of time before my surgery. So that was the old Jeff. So that popped up. There's also a pretty funny story about how I thought my surgery was going to be on a Monday afternoon, and I normally have a Monday morning clinic. So all the way up to about 4 or 5 days before my surgery, I still had that plan that I was going to somehow see patients in the morning and then have surgery in the afternoon. I did finally shift. It just, the powers over me made it so I couldn't work that out.
Well, and I don't know that that's a terrible thing either, though.
The new me is fine with it.
Because don't you think sometimes we need to have that forced expectation taken away from us by someone other than ourselves?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of that's been coming up actually, is what is forced both by circumstances, but also forced by others. Like, you should be doing this or you should be doing that. And then we do that to ourselves. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. And then wait a second, why not make this a choice where you do it differently because it's the right thing to do? And there's a battle of the right, but that's been where I agree with you on that.
That's what I call shoulding all over yourself, and you have to stop it. Because you're so right. I mean, the shoulds come from administration, from leadership. The shoulds come from patient mentality on how you should show up and how you should show up for them. The shoulds come from way back in our past in training and what a good doctor should do. I've even found sometimes the shoulds pop up from little kid Errin and family of origin stories on what should be happening.
Yeah, and I think some of it's, in addition to the shoulds, I think it's also a lot of habit. The other tough thing that's been challenging over the last few weeks is that there's still a lot to do. in this quote time off where I'm not operating. And I've been doing some things that there would be a little bit of question about, but I've been doing them smartly. But I theoretically have all this extra time and I still have plenty to do. I struggle with a sensation of boredom, yet there's still too much to do. So how can you be bored if there's too much to do? And what that tells me is that my thermostat or the measuring of what's too much and what's normal is way off.
That's what I was just going to ask you. So you talked about old Jeff and you're seeing yourself in a new identity. What are some of these habits and shoulds that you're trying to shake off while you're going through this transformation? Because it's not like you were old Jeff, you went into surgery, they replaced your brain, and now you're new Jeff. There is some kind of transitioning that you're doing through this, seeing it from a different perspective. So you're not going to get it 100% right all the time. But what is it that you think you got to shake off when it comes to this? I got so much to do, but I don't want to sit in boredom, or maybe I should sit in quiet and boredom.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of mostly that in this space or even in other conversations that we've had, maybe the Physician Coaching Alliance, but just the concept of sitting a bit in the uncomfortable. And so to me, a lot of this is, hey, I'm supposed to be uncomfortable here for a reason. And it isn't totally clear when you're going through it what you're actually learning. You are learning that there's an opportunity for change, but it's hard when you're in the middle of it to specify exactly what you're learning. But I guess maybe that's
absolutely
what I'm kind of sharing, is that I'm learning a lot. I think one of the things in particular is just learning maybe to less compartmentalize, if that makes sense. I'm used to the life of, hey, I don't have time for that anyways, I'll deal with it another time. And now I have the time to deal with it, and good and bad, that means I'm having to deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's almost a coping mechanism to keep kicking the can down the road and keep kicking it down and oh, I'm too busy, I don't need to deal with that. Or that's something I'm not interested, so I'm not even give any brain space to it. But when the throttle is pulled back and you're only going quarter or half speed from what you usually do, it pops it up in your face and it makes you sit with it.
Yeah. And I think I think what I like is that I put myself in a space where dealing with this has been better. I put a lot of time and energy into this process of being coached, of coaching others and challenging things and all the other sort of coaching principles, to the point where dealing with this now, I have a much bigger tool belt and personal awareness that it's been manageable. And I'm glad that I'm not in a point where I feel tremendous chaos, but it's definitely been a huge learning opportunity.
So what would you recommend for any other physicians who are either going through a sabbatical or a medical leave, or something that has kind of made them throttle back?
For that group, I would say reach out to a coach or someone who has a very high capacity and skill set to listen and support. I think that potentially a more important message, although I am compassionate to those individuals, is to actually do that before you get to the point. Because I think that's, for me, if you can process a lot of things and adjust more ongoing, then I think that awareness or that challenge is not so overwhelming and hey, you absolutely have to change. I feel like for me, this is potentially easier that I don't have to change completely because I'm managing things pretty well, but still tons of learning, and it doesn't mean that I can't manage it better.
I love it. The illustration I'm thinking of is when you're learning how to drive and learning how to brake sooner rather than running up to the next to somebody's bumper or the stop sign. It's easier, it's less jolting if you just start to brake, as you see the red light instead of running right up on it.
Well, Errin, it's been a pleasure being interviewed by you. Thanks for giving me that opportunity.
Absolutely. I'm always here for you, friend.
Well, there you have it. In less than 10 minutes, this is Jeff Smith being interviewed by Dr. Errin Weisman. Until the next episode of Life Improvement Strategies for the Surgeon Who Wants More. Ciao.
Now, take 10 minutes and put your plan into action to practice your best.